On the 12th of September 2012, in the Senate, a motion of public importance was moved by the coalition senators calling for a debate, and the subject was the Gillard Labor government's ongoing failure to fairly, equitably and justly index the military superannuation pensions. There were three speakers from the coalition, Senators Ronaldson, Humphries and Johnson. From the Labor Party, Senators Feeney, Gallagher and Bishop, and Senator Wright from the Greens. If you want to see what they actually said, you can go to the ADSO website, www.stand2, one word, stand2.org, and you can read from the Hansard transcripts, and you can also read some of the comments passed back to the senators on their individual speeches. The critical thing I want to discuss with you in this video is, why did this matter have to come forward? You'll note that the MPI was only calling for a discussion of DFRB and DFRDB. If you've looked at any of the ADSO videos that have been produced over the last 12 months, you'll realise there are shortcomings in not only those two schemes, and they're the old schemes, DFRB 1948, DFRDB 1972-73, and 1991 saw the MSBS, the current scheme, brought in. No mention of the MSBS in this scheme, and yet there are very distinct shortcomings in that scheme as well because of one common factor, and that is the failure to fairly index the military superannuations across the board. And there can be no doubt in anyone's mind what the intent of Parliament was when the MSBS scheme was brought in and when the old DFRDB scheme was brought in. In fact, if you want to, go and look at some of the reference material on the ADSO website. You can see there the clear intent, the absolute clarity of the government of the day to say that they were going to fairly index the pensions to maintain purchasing power. It's what the Jess report called for. But successive governments, this is not a failure of a particular party here, this is a failure of the Australian Parliament to fairly treat those who put on a uniform and stand prepared to fight and sometimes give their lives. What we have done and what we have allowed to do as citizens of this Australia is to allow successive governments to change the process whilst retaining the term CPI to conveniently save money. In the process, they are denying the veterans of this country a fair go. As you'd expect, the coalition members spoke with conviction to the motion and explained why it is now that they believe it is essential that we address this issue of unfair indexation of military superannuation. But they've limited it to just those over 55, as I mentioned before. We in ADSO have a concern about two other areas. One is the under 55 DFRDB members who are on invalidity pensions and or reversionary pensions. Invalidity pension being work-related but not war-related injuries, and of course reversionary pension as if the breadwinner in uniform has died, either before or after retirement. So if they're under 55, there won't be many of them, we'll agree. There's about 44,000 all up DFRDB in the scheme. There's about another over 3,000 invalidity pensioners, and there's nearly, I think it's about 8,000 spouse or reversionary pensioners, to bring it up to the total of 57,000. Some of those will still be under 55, but not a lot, I agree. But why leave them out? It doesn't make sense. And of course, the bigger concern is no one's addressing or proposing to address MSBS, that is those currently serving who were joined since 1991. In there, we've got a serious issue because CPI treats them unfairly again. And of course, the underlying all of this is our concern, of course, is that, yes, this is a promise. It's been signed by the Leader of the Opposition. But I turn back to my files, and there it is, in 2007, a similar sort of document signed by the then Leader of the Opposition, Mr Rudd, promising to fairly index military superannuation pensions, not like they claim now, which they conveniently say, oh no, we only promised to have an inquiry. He bagged the Howard government for not fairly indexing. The inquiry was to work out how they're going to go about doing it. But very conveniently, once they got into power, the tables turned. So once bitten, twice shy. Yes, the coalition's saying they're going to address a substantial portion of DFRDB, DFRB, leaving behind a couple of important groups, and at this stage, not addressing the MSBS. You, the public, the only ones that are going to decide whether that's a fair outcome. It's certainly better than what we've got at present, But would it be a fair outcome? Is it fair to leave those behind? Is it fair to ignore those still in uniform? Or do we say, or you say, by ringing up or going and visiting your local member saying, fix all indexation of military superannuation that's impacted by CPI because it doesn't protect purchasing power?